Chapter 7. The Great Glacier. Standing up straight, I mockingly imitated the squad leader's accent and protested, "No can do. No can do. Why always me? It should be Gawa's turn this time, shouldn't it? Equality is a principle of socialism, after all." The squad leader rebuked, "Comrade who? Why do you always have to be the odd one? Stop mimicking me. I'm the squad leader. When I say you speak, you should just speak. What's this talk about absolute equality?" I glanced at my buddies around me. They all sat watching in earnest, waiting for me to speak. Gawa cheekily stuck his tongue out at me when the squad leader wasn't looking. These guys, what a bunch. Left with no other option, I deflected. Report to the squad leader. What exactly are we discussing today? You haven't mentioned it. How can we speak if you don't tell us the topic? At that moment, Political Commissar Li Jian approached us. In his 30s and of average build, he had served as a soldier for many years. Treating officers and enlisted men with respect and without pretense, he greeted everyone. "Are you having a meeting, comrades? Let me listen in as well." The squad leader hastily saluted the commissar, who gestured for everyone to proceed and not let his presence disrupt the discussion. The squad leader, unnerved by the commissar's proximity, seemed unsure of what to do next. He felt that singing might be simpler and suggested, "Comrades, let's sing a revolutionary song to boost our morale, shall we?" In unison, the soldiers humorously replied, "Swollen," causing the commissar to nearly laugh out loud, though he quickly disguised it as a cough. Oblivious to the humor, the squad leader, with all seriousness, raised his hands in the motion of a conductor and started, "Comrades, I'll lead us off. Erlang Mountain, prepare and sing." The soldiers' voices rose in chorus, singing about Erlang Mountain. Despite the height, the determination to build the road to Tibet was unwavering, unafraid of winds or snow. The snow fell heavier now, the song echoing through the white vastness of the Kunlun Mountains. It was hard to say whether the snow-capped mountains lent grandeur to the army song, or if the soldiers' voices adorned the solitary magnificence of Kunlun. For a moment, even the engineers in another tent were drawn to the singing, forgetting their altitude sickness and lost in thoughts stirred by distant, endless peaks. On the third day of our journey into the mountains, our unit reached the Great Glacier, which was rumored to situate a small, deep basin nearby, our ultimate destination. Given the secrecy of our mission, we couldn't employ local guides for navigation, and in fact, no one knew the way. So we relied on crude military maps, searching for our target amidst a tangle of contour lines that resembled wild grass. The Great Glacier consisted of 3 segments, with significant elevation drops and steep slopes. The highest point surpassed 6,000 meters, where snow accumulated perpetually, never melting. The longest stretch of the glacier was slick as a mirror's surface, the ice hundreds of meters deep. At the bottom, the elevation dipped below the average for the Qing-Haidebet Plateau, deeply indented into the earth like a fissure, fostering a rare green band of vegetation. Here, where the high-altitude reaction subsided, traversing the valley below the Great Glacier was a must to proceed deeper into Kunlun Mountains. Before departure, engineers cautioned us against making any loud noises on the glacier, as that could trigger avalanches that would bury us alive. In an anxious silence, an accident still occurred on the path down from the glacier to the valley. A Beijing engineer lost his footing and tumbled down the icy mass. His battered body was discovered in the valley's oasis. Geologist Luo Ning, his colleague from the same unit, couldn't restrain her grief upon seeing the tragic scene and was on the verge of crying out loud. An expert geologist, Mr. Wang, hurried to cover her mouth, whispering urgently, "Don't cry out loud." Luo Ning buried her head deep in Mr. Wang's chest, weeping in agony. The political commissar led us in removing our hats and paying silent tribute to our fallen comrade. Then Gawa and I gathered the engineer's remains into a bag and buried him. He had joined us for less than 3 days. I barely knew he was from Beijing, and I hadn't even learned his name before he met such a silent end. The big guy gingerly started digging into the ground with his entrenching tool when suddenly, a blue fireball burst out of the hole he was excavating. The fireball, the size of a basketball, spiraled a couple of times in the air before plunging into the crowd. causing the squad's members to scatter for cover. When the blue flame extinguished, we discovered it was a strangely shaped beetle, its body like red transparent crystal, with wings clear as glass. We could see its semi-transparent organs through its transparent shell, within which flames seemed to flow, casting a mysterious and eerie aura. We exchanged uncertain glances, wondering what kind of insect it could be, but there was no immediate answer. Most likely an undiscovered species. Curious, Mr. Wong, one of the engineers, moved closer, adjusting his thick glasses with excitement, and carefully picked up the red, flame-like beetle with his fingers for a closer look. But at that moment, where his fingers touched the beetle, a blue flame ignited and swiftly enveloped his entire body. Mr. Wong was engulfed by the blue fire, and his skin instantly bubbled with severe burns before disintegrating. His glasses, warped by the heat, fell to the ground as he collapsed, writhing in agony. It was too late to save him. His screams as the fire consumed him echoed through the valley, sending shivers down our spines, and it didn't seem like he would succumb quickly. Some considered shoveling earth over him to extinguish the flames, but with 100% of his body suffering deep burns, even snuffing out the flames would only prolong the inevitable, especially in the remote Kunlun Mountains lacking medical resources. Unable to bear the sight of a living person being burned alive, Luo Ning turned away, speechless, covering her ears in shock. The youngest among us, little Lin from Jilin, was terrified and hid behind the big guy, trembling uncontrollably. The squad leader pulled out his pistol intending to end Mr. Wong's suffering since witnessing such torment was unbearable. Continuous screaming might even induce an avalanche. The political commissar restrained the squad leader's hand, softly saying, "No guns. Use the bayonet. Let me do it." Thus, amid tons of accumulated snow poised precariously above the Great Glacier, the only mercy to offer Mr. Wong was the swift end provided by a bayonet. Acting swiftly, the political commissar took a Type 56 semi-automatic rifle with a bayonet attached from a soldier. Muttering an apology to his comrade, he plunged the rifle's spike into Mr. Wong's heart. The engineer's pained cries ceased as he lay motionless, although the flames on his body still burned fiercely. As the political commissar attempted to withdraw the bayonet, the sinister blue flame suddenly flared up and shockingly traveled up the rifle from the bayonet. The speed of the flame's spread was so rapid that before anyone could grasp what happened, the political commissar was engulfed in blue flames. Like Mr. Wong, the political commissar writhed and wailed in agonizing pain. We all knew him too well. Though unassuming in appearance, he embodied the endurance and will of an exemplary professional soldier. It was a testament to the sheer torture inflicted by the ghastly fire that forced such grievous laments from him. With tears in his eyes, the squad leader raised his pistol. At this point, he could no longer stand the sight of the political commissar's suffering, regardless of the risk of triggering an avalanche. Just as he was about to pull the trigger, the engulfed political commissar managed to speak through the flames. "I order none of you to fire. Quick, take the comrades and leave." Despite the unbearable agony, the political commissar remained lucid enough to realize that his screams might cause an avalanche, so in a final act to avoid making noise, he grabbed the red-hot bayonet and drove it into his own heart. It took a long time before his body turned to ash. The remaining members of the squad watched this heroic and tragic scene unfold. Clenching their fists and biting their lips hard enough to draw blood, they fought to hold back the tears swirling in their eyes. Some had even bitten through their lips. The valley was unnervingly silent under the bright azure sky, which reflected off the icy surface of the Great Glacier, creating the illusion of two identical skies, one above and one below, making it difficult to distinguish which was real. The otherworldly beauty of the scenery was filled with an eerie and terrifying atmosphere. Two small piles of ash marked the spot where, just minutes before, two people had been alive and are now reduced to almost nothing. No bones, no residue remained. If it weren't for the witnesses of these events, who would believe such things could happen in this world? Suddenly, from the ash left by Mr. Wong, a blue fireball shot out. It hovered midair in front of everyone as though choosing its next target. Its speed was so fast that escape seemed impossible for anyone within its range. A faint buzzing, likely from the bizarre beetle's wing vibrations, filled the air. With the loss of 3 key members, the leading political commissar and 2 engineers, the mission seemed hopeless. The 2 remaining engineers were geodesy expert Luo Ning and geological expert Mr. Liu from Shanghai. The political commissar was no longer there, leaving the soldiers feeling rudderless. Yet facing the odd blue fireball, they all shared the same thought. Better be buried by an avalanche than burned alive by this demon. A few soldiers, unable to control their nerves, were already aiming at the floating beetle. The squad leader suddenly stepped forward and said, "Comrades, the political commissar has fallen. Now I'm in charge. I order you all to make it back alive. Got it?" I understood what the squad leader intended to do. He planned to sacrifice himself to buy time for the rest to evacuate. I grabbed his arm, choking back tears. "No, that's not right. You're not even a party member. Why should you be the one? If someone has to go, let it be me." The squad leader shoved my hand away. "Who? You're not even a youth league member. Why don't you listen when I tell you not to mimic me?" Without looking back, he charged towards the hovering ball of fire.